Welcome to the Rebel Army Podcast, the official podcast of Cork City Football Club. On this week's podcast, we talk to Cork City first team manager Tim Clancy. We talk to the founder of Zeus Packaging, Brian O'Sullivan, and we let you know exactly what to expect from the podcast in the season ahead. So here we go, very first podcast of the Rebel Army Podcast, and my name is Stephen Ryan, and I'm joined, and I will be joined every week, by the man inside the club, Aaron Howie.
Yeah, I'm here as well. You're stuck listening to me as well. So I'll be here to sort of provide an insight into what's going on at the club in any given week, from the men's team to the women's team, academy, amputees, anything at all, whatever's going in the club, I'll provide some bit of an update.
I suppose we better give ourselves a bit of an introduction, because there's people listening saying, who are they?
Who are these two fellas?
You're probably more known than I would be. Some of the older heads might remember me. I suppose I've been a fan of the club going back to probably 1990, I think was my first time in Turner's Cross. So I was a fan of the club for years, used to be in the shed as a teenager, just like the rite of passage like everyone else. And people might remember me if you were around in 2007, 2008. I was the club promotions officer in the club when we won the Setanta Cup. And we won the FAI Cup when Dennis Bean got that winner in the RDS. So I was only in the club a few weeks at that stage. So it was a great season, and then the financial crash happened, and as they say, yeah, that was a fun time. But stayed as a fan, and actually stayed as a sponsor of the club. I was the head of marketing at Fota Wildlife Park, and would have been a sponsor where we had our name on the back of the jerseys, and actually for the kids' jerseys we were on the front. And,
I remember that actually, yeah.
Yeah, and a fun fact is the reason why Cork City's mascot is a cheetah was because I asked for it to be a cheetah. So why Cork
You're responsible for Corky.
Yeah, so why it's not a lion or a bear or a fox or anything like that.
Or a tiger. We've had a few Corky the Tiger shouts on Twitter as well, yeah.
It's a cheetah because Fota Wildlife Park were renowned as being probably one of the most famous places in the world for breeding cheetahs for years. Nearly 200 different cheetahs were born there. And it's on the logo of Fota. So I remember at the time Kevin Mullen would have worked in the club, and he was the commercial director. And he asked, he said, would you come stay on board as a family sponsor? We'll give you a mascot. And I said, yeah, we'll do it. But I said, the mascot has to be a cheetah. So we designed the cheetah.
Never knew that backstory.
Yeah.
The reason behind Corky.
So it's a quirky one. And and then of course I went to Red FM. I was the head of marketing at Red FM, and became associated with the club again. We became media partners again. So yeah, I've always had an association, and then I'm a lecturer in MTU, and would have had the club involved in a couple of projects. And I'm season ticket holder at the Cross. I'd be always out there with my son, and love the club. So I'm delighted to be able to join from a fan capacity. So people be wondering, I'm going to be coming at it from the outsider point of view, whereas Aaron, you're going to give us the inside knowledge. So as an insider, tell me exactly what you do at the club.
Exactly what I do at the club. So I do all of our media, marketing, all that stuff. So I'm the media officer for the men's first team and the women's first team. I'm responsible for our social medias, our graphic design, all that sort of thing. Most of the content, we have people who help out on the video side of things and on the live stream side of things. But as you mentioned, the insider. So I work at the club. I've been at the club now since 2019. Yeah. So this is my 6th season, I think it is.
Yeah.
And similar to yourself, Cork City fan, always have been.
Yeah. Funnily
enough, my first ever Cork City game was the 2005 league win. So I'm the definition of a Sunshine supporter. But it obviously hooked me, because here I am all these years later. Yeah. And as you said, you'll have the outside perspective. I'll have the inside perspective.
Yeah.
Basically being able to let the listeners know what's going on at the club. Starting now, like last week, pre-season's finished now. We've had our last game against Bohemians, and that
was behind closed doors, was it?
Behind closed doors as well in Dublin. Originally it was to be played in Dalymount Park, but it was moved because of they're protecting the pitch for their first game next week. Yeah. This Friday, and so it was moved to the Oscar Traynor Centre. I think behind closed doors, because I just don't think they have the facilities there for it not to be behind closed doors. But that was another. We've had a couple of preseason games, as I'm sure Tim will get into later on when he comes in, that have been behind closed doors or have been changed from where they were originally supposed to be. So
I know it's not ideal from the fans. There are, it's been a long preseason as well, hasn't it? Like, I mean, people are waiting for a match,
It has, yeah. Typically when you're waiting for preseason, as soon as preseason arrives, people know they have a match to watch, but unfortunately that wasn't the case this year. But yeah, I'm sure Tim will go into the reasons behind those decisions as well later on. And yeah, there's new players at the club and young players coming through who it would have been great to give supporters an early look at them. But they'll all be on the pitch, you'd hope, on Friday. So and I see Turner's Cross to see them.
I see a few people in suits on Thursday night last as well. There was a bit of a civic reception or something in the City Hall. What was that about?
We did, yeah. So the Lord Mayor, Kieran McCarthy, put on a civic reception for the club's 40th anniversary.
Very nice.
I think volunteers, members of the media, the first team squads were invited in, the coaching staff and stuff like that. Really good evening, actually. There was seen a lot of faces you wouldn't have seen for a long time and sponsors coming along who, might be from around the country and don't get down a lot.
Yeah.
But it was really good. There was a bit of a sing-song. The Lord Mayor is fond of a song and he sang the banks of our own lovely Lee towards the end, which is really good. And it was an enjoyable evening. It kind of set the tone for a lot of the new players. He kind of explained, the Lord Mayor went into the history of the club and what the club means to not just everyone there, but everyone in the city and kind of what's at stake when you play for Cork City FC. So it was a nice thing to sort of kick off the season.
Yeah, and it's important that all those players know that they're playing for City and not Cork, because that can be a big problem at times.
If any of you do know me and you've seen me on both my social media and the club's social media, we just chase after everyone that calls us Cork. Cork is a place.
Don't worry. It's something. Funny enough, people be wondering, but why are you doing a podcast? Well, I have history in podcasting because I've had my own business podcast for the last 2 years called 24 Stories, and I actually interviewed Dermot last year, and that was one of the fun things I said to him at the time. Just make sure, as a tip, I said, that you call it Cork City and City in particular, and not Cork, because that's obviously associated with GA, and it's so funny. And anytime we've been to the crossing, if someone all of a sudden you hear a voice is, "Come on, Cork!" You're like, "Oh my god!"
Do you know what? At least if you hear it at Turner's Cross, someone's come along to Turner's Cross.
Yeah,
so
true.
At least they're there.
There's an educational piece in it.
Exactly.
Let's say.
Somewhere down the line, they'll end up like us, and they'll be calling out other people and saying, "Hey, it's Cork City."
But and speaking of the club, did I see a new jersey come out?
We did. We launched the third kit, so the black jersey, and we launched that last Wednesday, and really good reaction to it, really positive reaction online, and it seems to be selling well. So
that's your design.
It is, my design within the constraints of what we can do with Adidas. So there's been overall a good reaction to the three kits this year. So
what do? Do they give you a template or something to work with, or
there's basically there's the Adidas kit. It's my team. My Adidas it used to be called, and you basically can customize colors, patterns, stuff like that. Within the constraints of what you can do on whatever jersey template it is. But I see a lot of tweets and a lot of posts here and there about what direction we should go with jerseys and stuff. And white jerseys have been suggested for a while.
Yeah,
I saw someone, I don't remember who it was, but I remember seeing a tweet saying, "Why don't they just go mad with an away jersey every once in a while?" Which I think is what we did this year.
Which is kind of that bit of pink and
blue and pink. Two colours you would never associate with Cork City.
Yeah, but why not? Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, and there's like a range of hats and scarves in the same colours.
And you can buy them all in the shop.
All in the shop, all online. And a couple of eagle-eyed people actually expected a black and grey kit because they would have seen that there was the white and green hats and scarves, there was the pink and blue hats and scarves, and there was a random black and grey hat and scarf in the shop for the last couple of weeks as well. So some people probably suspected it was coming. But overall a good reaction to the three kits. So happy days.
We might have people listening to this now that are all over the world. Yep. They could be in the US, Australia, or wherever, even further afield. Is it easy to get the jerseys delivered to them if they buy them online? Yeah. Yeah?
It's very easy, the online shop delivers to everywhere, worldwide. You can customize jerseys with your own name and number on the back and all that. But worldwide delivery. Brilliant.
So that's what you have to do. You go on to corkcityfc.ie and buy that new kit.
Yeah. Happy days. The more Cork City jerseys we see around the place, the happier we are. We have tweets coming in from there's people in Australia, New Zealand, the US, and they're posting pictures in their Cork City jerseys, which is always brilliant to see. So
I tell you a funny story. I was in the US 2 years ago, in the summer, and I was at an Orlando City game, and they're playing the MLS over. So I'm walking down the street and I have my jersey on, a Cork City jersey. So I'm walking down, this fella goes, "Oh, I love the kit, man. I love Cork City." And I was like, he said he played with him on FIFA. So it's amazing, like a guy randomly on the street in Orlando recognized the kit straight away.
That's mad. It's the power of FIFA, or well, EAFC, I suppose it's called now.
Yeah. And but, apologies there for my dodgy American accent there. But anyway. Yeah, but we'll do a lot of that kind of stuff. But look, the idea of this podcast, I suppose, is to kind of give people a different perspective of the club. It's obviously going to be an inside track, what's happening over the week. And we're going to have a kind of a fun feature as well, where we're going to have how we out and about. There's
always tweets and comments on Instagrams and stuff like that. How we out, all this. So we've taken the approach of they're sending me out and about, and I'll be around in all aspects of the club, chatting to players, coaches from all the teams.
Yeah,
and that's one of our pieces. So I'll be on my travels for the foreseeable, going around the club.
And we've got that going already.
We do. I spoke to our new signing, Niall Brookwell, on Sunday in Bishopstown. He came in. He'd featured in the trial match against Bohemians, and obviously Tim and the coaching staff were very happy with how he did, because he was rewarded with a Cork City contract, and he has signed for us ahead of the new season. And I spoke to him in Bishopstown to get his thoughts after joining.
Buzzing. I'm just delighted to get it all off the line and signed and sorted. So I'm just can't wait to go. Can't wait to start the season on Friday.
You've been in training now for the past week or so. You featured in the match yesterday against Bohemians, so you sort of got a taste of what to expect this season.
Yeah, no, it was a good game yesterday. I thought I was unlucky to come out on the losing side. I think obviously with them being in the league above, was more than a match for them, and on another day it could have gone either way. But in terms of a pre-season game, I think we got everything that we wanted out of it.
And you're a new player to Cork City, but a new player to the League of Ireland as well. So for Cork City fans that don't know a lot about you, what kind of player can they expect to see?
So I can play a number of positions. I can play centre back, centre mid, right back. So I'm quite versatile. So I'm quite aggressive, but I also like getting on the ball and playing as well. So I like mixing it up, probably both sides of the game. So yeah, probably that.
And just in terms of getting the deal done and coming in, what has Tim sort of spoken to you about? What's the aim for the year? What's the outright goal for the season?
Yeah, so the outright goal is clear, is to win the league and get the club back where it belongs. So it's a great platform to come and express myself and help get this club back where it belongs, which is, like I said, winning the league.
So that's definitely not a Cork accent anyway. Where's that from?
I think it's Wigan he's from.
Yeah.
But yeah, he came through the academy at Liverpool, and he went on to play for Newcastle's under-23s in the Premier League 2, and I actually think he captained them for a couple of games.
Yeah.
But
it should be a very good standard as well, the Premier League 2 is top.
It is, yeah. And he comes with a good pedigree. I think he was managed by Stephen Gerrard, I think under 15s or 16s with Liverpool. So yeah.
So it adds a bit of something to the club. But you also got a chance to talk to Tim after the match on Friday.
We did, yeah. Immediately after the game.
Or Saturday, I should say. Was it Friday or Saturday?
It was Saturday.
Yeah, Saturday.
When was it? No, it was Friday, actually.
I was right first time.
Yeah. The pre-season games, they throw us all off. 3:00 kickoff on a Friday, so very different to your usual Friday night match. But that was a 1-0 defeat away to Bows. 2 penalties against us in that game, actually. Both missed. Well, one missed and one saved by Brad Wade. But 1-0 defeat, and I spoke to Tim shortly after that one as well. That's pre-season over and done with now, not just today, but pre-season as a whole. Are you happy with how it's gone?
Yeah, listen, really pleased with a lot of performance. Obviously, results in pre-season haven't been ideal, but I think today that's probably our best performance. So we've improved each game going forward. A lot of really good positives today to take into Kerry next week, and looking forward to now getting in on Monday and match week.
Another couple of injuries today. Have we any word on how serious or not serious some of those are?
Which ones?
Was it Matthew Kiernan came off, Charlie Lyons
came
off towards the end?
Matty just I think he got a little knock and he just came off. There's nothing wrong, and Chaz just sort of stiffened up, so it was okay. No, there's no
Evan McLaughlin as well, he was off early. Is he okay?
Evan went off, again, another little knock, so Evan's fine. He should be grand. Perfect. It was something gradual over the course of about 20 minutes, and just better off getting him off in the last pre-season game than making it worse.
So it looks like we're not to be too worried about the injuries.
Yeah, no, I think the injuries were okay. I think Matthew Kiernan, as he said there, I think it was just he took a bang to the head, I think, from a corner, but he seemed to be okay afterwards.
Yeah.
But yeah, there was a couple of injuries in the game before as well, but I don't think there was anything too serious to be overly worried about. But yeah, that's pre-season done now, and Kerry at Turner's Cross on Friday.
On to Kerry. How are tickets going for it?
Tickets are selling away. Yeah. It's the first ever meeting with Kerry. Obviously, yeah, there's always the Cork and Kerry rivalry, which now is being brought over to the League of Ireland.
Yeah.
And yeah, we'll see how it plays out. There's never been a meeting with Kerry, so normally you'd have, previous meetings, or you sort of know what to expect. A lot of Cork City fans might have never seen a Kerry match or never watched a Kerry match. So
I think was there a Killarney Celtic at some stage, or maybe they were on?
Killarney Celtic.
They still exist.
They do. Yeah, we played them in pre-season. Was it last year or the year before? I think we were down there.
And there was a team from Tralee at one stage.
Tralee Dynamos, I don't know if I wouldn't know a whole lot about.
I think did they go into the first division, or maybe that A-League or something. There was an A-League a few years back.
They could have. I think, as far as I know, was it Billy Denny and Darren Denny?
That's right.
Went through Tralee Dynamos and played there. Yeah. But Billy obviously is involved at Kerry FC now. I think he's a sporting director.
Yeah.
But yeah, that'll be interesting on Friday, first ever meeting.
Yeah, so exciting times ahead. But I suppose no better person to ask a bit more about this than the manager himself, Tim Clancy. So we better get him in. Yeah,
he's probably waiting outside there now. So I'll move back to the producer's chair in the corner and we'll get Tim in.
So the first guest on the Rebel Army podcast, we're delighted to have first team manager Tim Clancy. Welcome to the podcast, Tim.
Good to be here, guys.
Tim, before we kind of get into this season, and I know the fans would be keen to find out what's happening at the moment and stuff, I'd imagine there's a lot of supporters kind of want to find out the backstory. How did it happen to, that you ended up in Cork? But more importantly, where did your football career start? Am I right in saying it kicked off in Meath, is it?
Yeah, I played locally for my local team called Trim Celtic.
Yeah.
My dad was heavily involved in the club from when I was born. I think he moved to Trim in the, I think it was the 70s, and then he was there for the 80s and 90s. He was heavily involved in the football club, and I played up until I was about, I think, 14 locally, and then I went to Belvedere Boys in Dublin for...
They're the big club in Dublin for the schoolboys, isn't it? One of the big clubs,
isn't it? Clubs, yeah. And we had a good team there, and I was there until I was 18, and then I went to Millwall.
So at 18, so that's quite late back then, is it? To kind of go to Millwall from a schoolboys team. You didn't go to any League of Ireland club at that stage, or?
No, I think there was an under-21 league at that stage.
Okay.
So there was no real academy teams. I know Shamrock Rovers had a few as well, academy teams back then, but it was mostly just DDSL clubs really. In and around Dublin were the best teams to be at, and I stayed till I was 18. It was quite late actually going over, because a lot of kids would have left at maybe 15 or 16.
Yeah. Back then it was kind of usually, I know guys in Cork would always leave kind of 15, 16. They'd kind of finished their junior cert and gone. So did you get the leaving cert, or were you gone before it?
No, I did the leaving now. Much use it was to me now. Yeah. It wasn't too good academically. I didn't really apply myself in school. So I had the option to go into Grimsby Town when I was 15, when they were in the championship in England, and I stayed. I thought I was a bit young probably to head over, and I stayed until I completed the leaving cert. And then I suppose at 18 it was a sort of rite of passage to leave the house, because I'm number 7 of 8 kids. So I was used to my sisters and my brothers, older brothers and sisters, leaving to go to college or going to work and moving out. So moving to England at 18 wasn't really a big deal.
And were you the first to pursue a football career?
Yeah. I'd say a couple of my brothers tried to be footballers, but no. I was the only one really in the town. There was Brendan Murphy who played GA in goals for Meath, but he went over to Bradford City as I think a 16-year-old in Wimbledon when they were in the Premier League, bought him. Yeah. And it didn't really work out, and I think he went to Rushden and Diamonds, maybe a few other clubs, and he ended up back in Ireland. But when he got back home, he went down the GA route and was ended up being Meath keeper for a lot of years. So I think myself and Brendan are the only 2 professional footballers I can think of from Trim.
From Trim in all those years, yeah. So what was it like going to Millwall? That must be a big change going from Trim to London, kind of, and I'd say a tough club. Like maybe I know the perception of the club is tough.
Yeah, I suppose Trim at the time probably had about 7,000-8,000 people living there, and you're going from down there to the edge of London in Bromley and Kent. So it was a big culture shock, all right. Yeah. But it was brilliant. I can remember the club was, they just lost in the semi-final of the playoffs to get to the Premier League.
Whoa.
And I think it was the game against Birmingham where they had a load of riots afterwards. I think about 8,000 fans got banned. So you were going in at a mad time. But it was an unbelievable experience. The atmosphere inside the club, between the players and the first team and the reserves and the youth team was very close. And it was an eye-opener going in there every day. And I thought that's what every club was like. But obviously it wasn't.
And like, did you get a run out? Did you get a chance with the first team, or what happened?
No, to be honest with you, I don't think it was good enough to get into the first team at Millwall. When I was there, they got to the FA Cup final against Man United. They lost 3-0. And I don't think it was anywhere near good enough, to be honest with you.
Ronaldo was playing in that final.
I think Roy Keane and a few played. One of my mates then I played with Belva with, he left and went to Millwall as well. Barry Cogan, a fella from Sligo, he ended up coming on for the last 20 odd minutes in that game. So no, I wasn't anywhere near the first team. I was in a few squads and whatnot, but I didn't make the grade there.
So did you have to go out on loan, or what happened, or what happens at that stage? Or did they release you?
Steve Claridge was a manager at Weymouth in the Conference South, I think it was at the time. Yeah. And he was playing at Millwall when I was there for the first year. And he left and he ended up being Weymouth manager, and he came back in and asked me to go on loan, and a few loan spells down there, which is great to play first team games.
Yeah.
And then when I ended up leaving Millwall, I stayed locally with a non-league club called Fisher Athletic.
Okay.
And again, I went to Hornchurch first, which was another non-league club, but they were paying really good money for non-league teams. And again, like a lot of clubs over there, they just go bust overnight. Yeah,
their goal is to probably get up into the League 2 or something like that. Is it? That's the ultimate goal. You see it at the moment, you know. Yeah.
And it was similar, like then Fisher were the next team that were sort of paying decent money, and I ended up getting an apartment, living for no bills or whatever else, and getting a few quid in my hand, which was good at the time. And but it was really good because I played about 100 games in non-league, which was really helpful when I got an opportunity then to go to Scotland.
And then you stayed in Scotland for a while, a couple of different clubs. What was the first one?
I went to Kilmarnock, and I was there for 4.5 years. And then after Kilmarnock, I had a season with Motherwell. I had 18 months at Hibs, and then I finished with St. Johnstone for 6 months as well. And then I came back to the League of Ireland then.
And were you playing the Premier Division at the time, so in Scotland, or?
All the for the 7.5 or 8 years I was up there was the Premier Division, yeah.
What's it like to play at the likes of Celtic Park and Ibrox and, you know, these big stadiums, full houses?
Yeah, it was weird because I'd only made a couple of appearances, I think, for Kilmarnock. And I remember it was my second start even was a game in December away to Rangers, and you get there and obviously it's floodlights come on for kickoff, but you can see the atmosphere building in the warm up, and by the time you go in, the stadium might be 3/4 full, and by the time you walk out, it's completely packed. And yeah, it was really, really good. It was a massive experience, and it's something that it was a really good move for me because I was never going to be good enough to play in front of big crowds like that in England. So I got that experience, I suppose, in Scotland. I think I played against Rangers 15 or 16 times and Celtic the same. So I had a good few games against them.
And who were the players that stood out that you had to, I suppose, mark or whoever at the time? Like, who was taking you on that you said, whoa, this guy, tricky character? Like,
there was plenty of really good players for both teams. I suppose in direct competition, I was a fullback or a centre half, so I came up against Aidan McGeady, Sean Maloney.
Yeah.
Nakamura was a different type of player to play against. He didn't really take you on. He was really weak and slow, but he was unbelievable.
Yeah.
He just had an unbelievable left foot. Rangers had, I remember Jelavic that went to Everton. He played up front in the game. I remember playing against him, saying he was really, really good.
Yeah.
Rangers were more physical probably back then. And Celtic had really good players. And Robbie Keane's debut actually, who played in that game, he signed the next day. We actually beat them 1-0 at Rugby Park. So myself and Wee Hammer, who's my assistant now here, he was playing that game as well.
Great experiences. And then you said you came back to the League of Ireland. Like, did you see a huge difference then between, the Scottish Premiership and the League of Ireland when you came back? Or like, what would you know?
Yeah, listen, there's a lot of people want to compare Scotland to the League of Ireland. There's just, I'll be honest, there's no comparison really. It's a proper industry over there. There's obviously the TV finances that come into play, and I think people underestimate the size of the other clubs in the league in Scotland. They think it's just Celtic and Rangers. And outside that, there's
likes of Aberdeen and Hearts and stuff.
Hearts and Hibs, Aberdeen. They'd be probably the three next biggest clubs. And you're looking at like Hearts have a stadium that's outstanding. Hibs' stadium is good. And you're talking like Hearts is probably double the size of Tala. It's getting packed every week. And I'll be honest, if they had 30,000 seater stadium, I think they'd probably fill that every week as well. It's huge clubs, and Aberdeen as well. And I think probably the best players in the League of Ireland can play in the SPL and a lot higher levels than that. But I think the average, the poor players in Scotland are just more professional and more experienced, and will be of a higher level than probably the lower level players over here.
Because there was a few players around that time. I can think of Cork City at the time, the likes of Dan Murray, Danny Murphy, they all went to Scotland as well, didn't they, for a bit, and they came back again. And there was a bit of, I remember it was Danny was playing with Motherwell or someone at the time over there, and you think, well, if he could do a job for City and then he's doing a job over there, I'd say a lot of fans thought they're on a par, but not really. It's
just different. It's a different league, like, and it's a different league. It's intense over there. Like you look at all the newspapers and you don't see anything got to do with English football. You might see if it was Rooney at the time had done something, or one of the big names would be like 7, 8, 9 pages in on a side column where the back,
whereas it dominates
6, 7, 8 pages is all Scottish football. So that side of things, we're still a bit behind in infrastructure as well. But again, listen, I think the league will be similar to Scotland in a way. It's a good league for young players to go and develop. And I think there's probably steps in the ladder that you see that if someone gets to Scotland does well, it gets them to England, and if someone does well over here, it can get them to probably lower level in England or Scotland as well.
So when you came back to the League of Ireland, did you move around clubs a bit?
Yeah, I came back. I had Pat Fenlon when I was at Hibs, and I think the last 3 years of my career in Scotland, I had a lot of injuries. I had osteitis pubis, which kept me out more or less for my whole period at Hibs. I had operations on my elbows, my knees, whatever. Like, so I was out for quite a long period. And then when, my last day, my contract at St. Johnstone, I ruptured my Achilles, which put me out for probably 9 months. And I was obviously out of contract, so I came home with the family. And
you're literally unemployed then at that stage.
That's it. I didn't work for maybe 10 months. And Pat Fenlon was in at Shamrock Rovers, so I sort of went back in there and tried to get myself fit. And I had half a season there, then went to Sligo for a year, and then I had about 18 months at Bray, and then I ended up getting the Drogheda job.
Well, were you future planning then at that stage? Were you starting to think, I'm going to get into coaching here? Like when you got that injury, were you thinking, okay, I've had a lot of injuries up to this point, I'm now out for 9 months. What's the future for me? Yeah, I think I was offered to do my badges when I was 18, 19, I was at Millwall, and I'll do it next year, and I'll do it next year, and I'll do it next year, and then all of a sudden your career's over. I was down to do the B license, and then I ruptured my Achilles, and I was supposed to start the B license a few days later, but I didn't get on it, and I ended up having to do it then that year. And by the time I'd finished playing at Bray, I had the A license complete, which allowed me to manage in the first division. So. And you were one of the youngest managers, I'd say. Like early 30s at that stage? I was 33 when I got the Drogheda job, And Stephen Bradley was in at Shamrock Rovers. And I think it was myself and Stephen were probably two of the younger managers, all right, in the country. But again, listen, it was something that I did plan on going into at some stage. And when that job came up and I was at the opportunity to take it, I think it was sort of a decision to make. And you don't get the opportunity too often. And you see there's only a certain amount of jobs in the country. So when I took the job, like it was a bit of a risk for Drogheda because I didn't really know the level and never managed before myself, and it was also a risk for myself because if it didn't work, I think the percentage of managers to get a second job in football, I think it's only 20% maybe. So but it was a great opportunity, and I was absolutely delighted to take it. And within a couple of seasons, you got the first division title, so that definitely cemented you then as a one to watch, kind of in many ways, I'd imagine, for the bigger clubs. Yeah, I think we had quite a young squad at Drogheda as well, and
a lot of really good young players. And the club hadn't sold a player in 30 years. And in the couple of years, 4 years I was there, I think we started that ball rolling again. We sold a couple of players to William Hunmark went to Norwich, and then Killian Phillips went to Crystal Palace, and Kev's continued on now with a few more young good players that get opportunities in the first team, and have got sold on. And in that period as well, we lost the playoff final and a relegation promotion final against Finn Harps, and we were lucky enough then we won the first division title in the COVID season, and then we had a really good season the next year in the Premier Division, and thankfully the club sort of consolidated, and Kev's flying with them now.
And then Pats came knocking at your door. How did that come about? Because it was in mid-season, was it?
It was right at the end of the season.
Yeah.
They just won the cup, and then Stevie O'Donnell had stepped away to take the Dundalk job, and I was asked would I be interested in the Pats job, which I was delighted to get the opportunity to manage at Pats. They just won the cup. They were in Europe, and I seen it myself as progression. It was a chance to go back into full-time football, and an opportunity to have a bigger budget and full-time, and you could scope your scope for recruiting players was a lot more because you had accommodation and stuff like that. So I think it was a really, really good opportunity for me, and it was one that I couldn't really turn down. And it was difficult to leave Drogheda because we were doing so well there, and had such a good time with the players, the staff, and all the club as well, and the fans were brilliant. So but I just felt that it was an opportunity that I couldn't really turn down, and I went into Pats then, and I think it was just over 2 years ago now.
But the chance to play in European football, I'd imagine, is brilliant as a young manager. Like, to pitch yourself against teams from outside of your league, I'd say that was a great experience. Yeah,
that was obviously a massive carrot that was dangling there. The European games that were coming up in the mid-season. It was difficult as well because we went in and there wasn't a squad full of players signed, and I think a lot of them were out of contract, and I'm really sure 9 or 10 of the squad had left. We had to recruit. It was quite late in the window, relatively late anyway, to be starting to put a squad together. Was probably the end of the first week in December. And a lot of clubs in the League of Ireland had been finished for 4 weeks, so they obviously had their business done, and we put a squad together. And listen, we thought we'd done okay the first year. We qualified for Europe again, and we went through around in Europe and had a good win against CSK Sofia away over there, beating them 1-0, and we were unlucky at home to go out 2-1 in aggregate.
So, how come you left them? Like, what came about?
Just listen, results didn't go too well. The way football is, it can be perceived that we were really struggling, but the full season I had at Pats, we finished with 61 points, and they've 2 seasons either side of it. They finished 62 points, which were seen as very successful seasons. And the season I was there just seemed to have been that it wasn't a great season, but we only 1 point difference. And if you look at it, listen, we lost 3 games in a row, and we had a heavy defeat against Dundalk away with 5-0, which was pretty poor. And then we went on a good run. We drew up against Shamrock Rovers and won 4 in a row. We were sitting second in the league, and then we'd 3 games in 9 days, and we lost 3 of them again, and I was out of job. So I think it was just because the defeats came so close together, and again, listen, maybe it was the right time because John stepping in seemed to give them an injection, and they had a good end to the season.
Like, that was your first experience of that. Like, you had success at Drogheda, so it was your decision to walk away from Drogheda. What's it like then when it's kind of out of your hands, kind of at Pats? Like, you know, as a manager, we see it. It's like they're disposable all the time. They come in, they do a job, but then they have a bit of failure and they're kicked out. So how does that feel for you? Like?
Yeah, in fairness now to Garrett Kelleher, I had a good long discussion with him. There was an option for me to stay. But I just felt that if I had have lost another couple of games, even if we won 6-7 in a row, if we lost a couple more, I think we'd be in the same conversation again. So we decided it was probably the best time to.
So it's kind of mutual.
Part of it. It was mutual to a degree, but listen, I'm also pragmatic. It was also because results weren't going great at that period of time. So it was mutual to a degree. But again, that was the probably only other time in football that I was without of work. Was when I ruptured my Achilles and I had 6 months out. But that was the first time I was out of work when I was capable of actually working in football. In over 20 years. So it was good. It's something different. You reflect, you blame everyone else for the first few weeks, and then you look back and you say, right, what could I have done different? And you start thinking there's many things that I could have probably done different and possibly would have added to different outcomes. But and then you start rebuilding again, and you get that little bug back to get back in. And
do you go to games during that period, or do you kind of stay away from it? Like, what happens?
The first few weeks, I would have watched Drogheda play Dundalk a few times. I didn't go back to Pats, and you do take a little break from it. But then again, listen, you get back in, you start putting yourself back out there again, and I've done a bit of media stuff around the end of the season, and that was quite good. And you just tried to stay relevant. And listen, I had it when I was at Pats, and I lost a couple of games. You'd have managers that were out of jobs sitting behind you in the dugout, and I thought it was a bit desperate, if I'm honest with you. And I was very conscious of that if a manager at a club was under pressure, I wouldn't be going to any of their games, because having stood in the dugout, and you get a few wins, then all of a sudden these faces disappear again. So I just don't. Yeah, I don't think that's the right way to go about it.
I'd imagine there's a lot of that in Dublin, because there's so many teams are concentrated in the same area, and then of course you have the two in Loud as well, and you have all these teams in the one area that the managers will go to the different matches even if they're out of work. That probably wouldn't happen down this part of the world to the same extent. Like,
yeah, I think it's because there's so many clubs concentrated in that area. But yeah, you get it. But it's you see it, they do the rounds. As soon as a manager loses a couple of games, they turn up at that ground, they turn up the next ground, and
that's nearly putting more pressure under a guy. Like,
it is, but it's football. That's the industry that you're in. You can say a lot without saying anything. So
So then, Cork City, when did that come about?
Just at the end of the season. It was at the playoff game against Waterford, which was not great for the club. And I thought there was a lot of talk about other managers being linked to the job, and I was out of a job at that stage, and I just got a phone call with Dermot, and it happened very, very quickly. It happened in the space of 2 hours, and that was it.
And you would have known Dermot from kind of Bray times, when you would have played with Bray for a bit.
Yeah, when I played for Bray for the 18 months, Dermot was one of the people at the club who was putting money in, and I would have got to know Dermot then, and obviously, listen, every time I would have had questions or voice to lean on for certain things from a business perspective or ownership of a club, maybe I would have possibly leaned on Dermot for advice, and I've other people that would have rang for football and things, and maybe other people from whatever background of football like that I sort of lean on people, and Dermot was one of the people that I would speak to on occasion. So, and then if we seen each other at a game, or if I knew he was going to a game, we'd catch up and have a chat with that. So to have a previous sort of relationship with Dermot then just meant that the probably the dialogue between myself and the owner of the club is better now than it was probably at Pats.
And did Cork City, like, to you, like, what did Cork City mean to you? Like, was it, something that you were familiar with? Obviously, you had played at the Cross, I'd imagine, a few times. What were the thoughts?
It's a huge, huge club. And it probably sounds wrong, but like, City going down is it's not what anyone wants at the club, but it's probably given me an opportunity to get back in to an absolute massive club, and it's something I'm very, very grateful for. Like, I'm well aware. I played at the Cross when it was bouncing. I remember actually Bray, we lost 4-0 there, and it was the season that we were doing really well.
Yeah.
I think we were unbeaten in 12 maybe at the end of the season that year, and I remember going down, we were hiding 4-0, and when the place is full and it's bouncing, and I think City they won the league that year. I think it was the season, was it 15 or 16? 17 was it? They won
17,
the first 17 games of the season.
Yeah, there was a 20 odd point gap at one stage. Yeah.
That's where I remember playing there at that period of time, and it's brilliant. And that sort of we showed the lads a video today before training of what the club is, and especially the ones that wouldn't be aware of it, and just to let them know that it's a special place to play football, and when you get it right, it's no better place in the country. Yeah,
and as I'm looking across at you, the crest alone kind of is significant. 1984, which means it's 40 years this year. So, there's a lot of history there. But it's still a young enough club in comparison to some other clubs in the country. But even in that period, all the league titles, the success, the fans are probably going to be looking for that success to come back. Does that put pressure on you?
No, it's listen, as I've said this previously in other interviews, it's not a pressure at all. It's a privilege. The club should be looking for success, and our aim this season should be to go out and win the league. We're the only full-time team in it, so I'm sure we'll be up there for everyone else to have a pop off. We've done a good bit of work in pre-season by going and watching a lot of the other teams as well, and listen, it's not going to be an easy season, but it's certainly one that the fans should have expectations the size of this club to get back to the Premier Division and then get ourselves competing again.
And you've inherited some players, but you've brought in some players as well. Who should people be keeping an eye out for?
I think we've put a good squad together. I think the fans are going to get to see, and again, it's frustrating for the fans that they haven't seen us really in pre-season. That's no fault to our own. We obviously couldn't use Turner's Cross for the Shells game, which is supposed to be our home game that we wanted to get a good crowd at, but we weren't able to use the stadium. The pitch wasn't ready, so that game had to be shoved out to Dublin, and then subsequently we had to lose the Sligo game in the middle of that as well, and Derry also called the game off a couple of weeks beforehand, so it's been a little bit frustrating for that one, but I think we have some exciting attacking players in the squad now, and I said it in previous occasions as well, and I'd say it again. I think some of the talented young players we have at the club, I think the fans are going to be really, really excited with, and I hope they get to see enough of them, because I'd imagine a lot of clubs are going to come knocking on the door pretty soon.
Are you talking about the players that have come through the academy?
Yeah, there's some really, really good academy players. I think Jaden Numa is obviously one that he stands out with the attention he's getting from clubs across Europe, and physically Jaden's very, very good, and he's similar to his big brother Franco, and he plays similar style. Like he likes to take players on, and Jaden will have an impact this season. And
he's young though, isn't he?
He's only 15, but he'll be 16 in March. And listen, again, I'm a manager that if players are ready and good enough, irrespective of their age, they'll play. And
it's a trend that's happening across Europe at the moment, isn't it? I mean, you only have to look at Jude Bellingham breaking through with Birmingham as a 16-year-old. Yeah, well, I've done the same with lads at Drogheda. They would have played very, very young, and obviously Sam Curtis and Adam Murphy would have played quite a bit at me before. John took over, and they got subsequent moves off the back of it. But I think another one at the club is Cathal O'Sullivan. I think is a really, really special talent. He's remarkable. Like, we look at him every day and the stuff he's doing. He's one I think that the fans are going to be on the edge of their seat every time he gets the ball. And that's brilliant because they love attacking players. You know, I mean, that's something that's been part of the club over the years, and that is something that they've been looking for, especially with Rory leaving. I suppose they're wondering who's going to fill that gap, who's going to score the goals. Yeah, and again, listen, my teams from the past, it'll be no different this season. We want to attack, we want to get a lot of goals, and I think Keats probably carried the burden of the goal scoring last season on his shoulders. He scored quite a few himself, but certainly this year we're going to need goals from more areas of the pitch, and I think the players that we have up in the attacking end of the pitch, I think Jack will take quite a bit of that. Murph is there, Nathan's come in from Newport, you have Malik, you have Evan McLaughlin, you have Cathal, Jaden, you've like Barry Coffey scored 15, 20 goals the last time we were in the first division, so there is a lot of players in the squad that can chip in, and that's something that we need to have this season. Nathan's an interesting one. He's going from playing in the FA Cup against Manchester United to playing in the League of Ireland. It's a big difference in the space of a few weeks for him. Yeah, and again, I think the conversation that I had with Nathan that was really pleasing was he obviously played a lot of games in the Welsh Premier Division, and he just said he wants to play games. He doesn't want to travel around England with a tracksuit on, saying he's a footballer and getting 10, 15 minutes here and there. So he's looked sharp. He's looked really good since he's come in. He's a great kid as well. So I think that's another one that will get the fans excited when he's in the attacking areas as well. Have you had a look at Kerry? Because obviously they're a fairly new club. Obviously it's their second season, but have you kind of had a deeper look at them? Yeah, we've got video of them. We've watched them in person as well.
obviously it's difficult with the amount of turnover of players in the league, but that's something that we've done quite a lot this pre-season. Is we've got eyes on every team in the league, live, like not just watching games. And like this week, for instance, myself and Jamie, well, obviously had our own game on Friday, and we went watched the first half of Longford against Shells, and straight over to watch the 90 minutes of Bray and Drogheda, and then we had a lovely 9-hour trip up to Finn Harps to watch them against Sligo on Saturday.
That's a busy weekend.
But listen, again, we'll get to see Finn Harps against Longford on Saturday this week because they play on the Saturday. So we have them second game of the season. So it's good and important to get to games. You see certain things that you don't pick up on the video. And Richie and Hamo have gone and watched Cove a few times. They've been out the Treaty. We've watched Wexford, Bray, UCD. We've got the whole league covered in regards to as many games as we possibly could. So it's just sort of a part of it. And Kerry, we'll do our homework, and we have done, and we'll look at a bit more than before Friday night. And we're just hoping now that we can go into the season and also concentrate more on ourselves rather than always worrying about the opposition as well.
Obviously, City would be one of the favourites to go back up as I suppose champions. Who do you think are going to be the biggest threats to the club?
Listen, I think having watched the games, I think it's going to be a really competitive league. I think a good few of the clubs in the country have strengthened and probably pushed the boat out, seeing that there's, I think last year, obviously Galway and Waterford had massive budgets, and it seemed to be that they were a bit ahead of everyone else. So I think a lot of clubs have looked and possibly said it might be a good time to sort of have a go. But again, it's going to be, listen, difficult. There's no easy games. I know it's a cliche, but it is the case, and we have to just make sure that every single game we're at it. I think we've enough talent in the squad. We just have to make sure that application and all the other side of stuff is second nature, and if it is, I think we'll be okay.
I'm guessing you're hoping for a big crowd on Friday night.
Yeah. Listen, again, the fact that we never got to play in front of the fans this pre-season is being frustrating for us. So the lads are down and turning across today to have a look around, and especially the ones that haven't been to the stadium or seen it. So it'll be massive, and I can't wait now till Friday night to experience the fans and everything else, the atmosphere from our side of the fence, though.
Yeah, listen, the first game is always a special game, and the fact that we have this little rivalry with Kerry in general, a bit of obviously in other sports mainly, but the fact it's now coming into football, it's brilliant, and I think that'll excite people, and I'd imagine they'll bring up a couple of fans as well because they're getting a chance to come to Turner's Cross. Yeah, again, I think it's going to be, I think everybody's going to be looking to play against us this season and wanting to beat us. And it is a good game to start off with. It's a game that should have a bit of needle in it. Yeah. And it's a good chance for us to go now and get ourselves off to a winning start. And again, we've done our bits on Kerry, the athletic, the attack in numbers, and they're quite athletic in the attacking end of the pitch as well. So it's one that we have to be wary of. But it's certainly a game that we're really excited about. No, I know some of the fans have sent in some questions, so I'm going to just kind of throw a couple of quick fire ones at you. So the first one came in from Owen. He said, what's been the best part about living in Cork? Oh, well, it's not living with Hamo anyway, that's for sure. No, listen, it's, I will say it, my wife will kill me, but getting good night's sleep, I suppose. But, no, it's been really good. Like we're living in Rochestown there near Douglas, so it's really good. We've been getting out and about as much as we can, and it's probably actually the introduction to paddle tennis. Myself and Hammer are giving Richie and Fenners a hiding every week, so we're getting quite good at it. Going down to Carricktool, so to the new place that's down there. Yeah, it's very good. It is very good. So I think once a week we try and get out there. And bit of escapism. Yeah, well, it's a bit of a workout for Fenners and Richie, but myself and Hammer enjoy it anyway. So the other question was, what's your goal for the season? Listen, this season we want to, obviously the aim for the club is to get back promoted again. But another part of that is I want to be seen to develop, but not really develop, but to give the opportunity for the younger players in the first team. And if we can get success on the pitch with results and bringing young players through, I think that's a double whammy for the club as well. So it's to obviously get us back promoted, but also to introduce a lot of the younger players and give them an opportunity as well. Yeah, brilliant. Anthony's asking, who's the fittest man on the team?
Well, I tell you what, in the running in pre-season, Aaron Healy was very fit from day one.
Yeah.
He was excellent in the runs. Harry Nevin's very fit as well. So in fairness, now the lads have had a good, tough pre-season, and they're feeling the benefits of it now. And I think in the games we played so far, there've been obviously games against the Premier Division teams, which were very good. But as the pre-season's gone on, you can see that the fitness and the energy and the levels of the lads are really good.
And Marty's asking, how far do you aim to go in the FAI Cup?
I was going to say one step further than last year. So if you want to go 2 steps, listen, again, it's you look at the look of the draw, whatever else, but it's certainly a competition that you're only 4 or 5 games away from the Aviva, and our priority is obviously going to be the league. But when the FAI Cup comes around, it's something that we want to progress in for as long as possible.
The last question comes from Fiona, and she says, are you nervous for the first game at the Cross?
Nervous, yeah, I suppose not really nervous, but an excitement more than nerves. I think we've done our work in pre-season. We've done as much as we could towards the opposition and watching games and traveling up and down the country. So we feel prepared, and it's more of an expectation now rather than a nerve. So, but you never relax come Friday night. So it's back to that feeling now, even now sitting here, knowing that we'll be out there Friday night. It's starting to build now, so you can feel that coming now.
Yeah, hopefully get a good win under our belts, and then away we go. Well,
That's
look,
it.
Tim, thanks million for coming in on the very first episode of the Rebel Army podcast. I'm sure we'll have you back a few times during the season to find out how everything is going. But thanks again for coming in, and best of luck on Friday.
Cheers, thank you.
Well, Aaron, what you think of that?
That was a good chat actually with Tim. It gave an insight into when he was in Scotland and playing against teams like Celtic and Rangers, which obviously Celtic are a huge club, a lot of supporters in Ireland.
Big crowds and the likes
big
of Sean
stadiums.
Maloney and stuff like that. You know, good old players back then against them and stuff, you know.
Coming up against Nakamura as well.
Yeah. And it was funny how he said he wasn't the fastest player, but
Yeah.
obviously he had a great football brain.
Still an incredible player.
Yeah.
But even interesting to hear how different it is when he came back to the League of Ireland, that, you know, a lot of people draw comparisons between League of Ireland and Scottish League. But
do you know what? I like his honesty.
Yeah.
You know, and I think sometimes, you know, we need to call it like it is. And there is a difference because they have huge funds. As he said, a club like Hearts could sell out 30,000. Never mind Celtic and Rangers. Like we're a bit off that, but who knows? Like, you know, we get there.
What I liked when he was talking about how it's an industry in Scotland and how it's all about Scottish football is that, you know, he was saying you read the papers and there's no mention of the Premier League or English football. Like that's incredible that it's so
big.
Separated, that it's so big over there. They don't need to talk. You know, in Ireland, a lot of people have their League of Ireland team and their Premier League team, whereas a lot of supporters in Scotland probably only watch the Scottish League and they have their club there.
That's true. Yeah. We sit side by side in many ways. And sometimes, you know, some people get very upset about it. That's the reality of it. And I think we probably just have to deal with that, because until it gets to the stage where the clubs are of the level, let's say, of the Scottish teams, then maybe the kids growing up will get used to just only supporting one or something.
Yeah, and it gives that motivation for clubs and for the league to push on and keep growing. Like the growth over the last couple of years, you see the attendances, not just at the Cross last year, but in Dublin, like 8,000 last week for the President's Cup. Like, the league's growing and the interest is growing. So yeah, that just sort of leaves the motivation there to,
and I think
make sure it continues growing.
One of the most exciting things there is the way he was talking about the young talent coming through, and the fact he's going to give them a go. Yeah,
it's exciting. Yeah. Like, his attitude of, you know, it doesn't matter the age, if they're good enough, they're ready. Yeah, that's exactly what
I think that's going to excite the fans.
As a supporter. Yeah,
I know young fans love that.
Yeah,
you know, like, and we always have to think about them as well. The young kids coming to the Cross, they need something to get excited about. Yeah, and they could potentially see someone that only lasts maybe for a year or two and could go on to great things, like we've had in the past. You know, with so many different players, whether it was, you know, Shawnee going off to England, whether it was Dave Moyle or Shane Long or whoever. You know, there are all these players over the years that have gone on, and it will, for a while, that will continue to happen. But I think it's exciting, though.
Oh, it's brilliant. It's absolutely brilliant. And the one thing with our players and young supporters at the Cross is, you know, when the games finish, they always give great time to the kids when they're coming out. You've probably seen it yourself when they're coming out the back by the shed.
They love it.
They're there for half an hour after a game, taking selfies and autographs and all that stuff. So that's brilliant for supporters to come in, young and old supporters, to get a chance to meet the players, that they're so accessible here.
Yeah. And I think they're going to get new fan favourites this season. We all know that they loved Rory last year. But listen, every season there's a new player comes in and the kids get, caught up with them.
Yeah.
Whether it's a bit of flair on the pitch, whether it's brilliant defending, whether it's an unbelievable
goal scoring or the flashy boots. It's always something.
Yeah. In every generation of City teams, there has been different players that have caught the imagination. And just listening to Tim there, I think we're going to have an exciting season ahead, because he's talking about those attacking players.
Yeah. We're nearly there now. So once we kick off on Friday, everyone has their weekly routine. Their Friday nights are back. So yeah, we're nearly there. It's very exciting.
So I know it's episode 1. And every week we're going to have one guest come in where we kind of do this kind of big interview, we might call it. I don't know. Maybe the audience might have a name for it. But this week we said, because it is the first one, we said we go for 2.
Yeah, make it a bumper episode. We'll get 2 guests in.
Yeah. And who better than to get in somebody who's supporting the club in a great way. And that's Brian, the founder of Zeus. So I think let's bring him in. I'm delighted to introduce a man who's responsible for supporting the club in a major way, Brian O'Sullivan, founder and CEO of Zeus Packaging. Welcome to the podcast, Brian.
Thank you very much, Stephen. Delighted to be here. It's my second podcast. I did one before, and I didn't listen to it, so I'm not too sure how successful it was or it wasn't. And I definitely not going to boost your ratings anyway, Stephen, because I've never listened to it or any podcast. So there you go. So I'm not too sure how good I'll be for your ratings or for the ratings of the Rebel Army podcast.
Well, I suppose people listening to this podcast might be wondering what actually is Zeus. They're probably curious. They see it on the jersey. They see it when they go to Turner's Cross. They probably see a good few of the trucks around as well. Yeah. And they're probably wondering what actually is the company.
Very good question. The business today is a global business. I started the company 26 years ago on my own, one guy with the typical one van operation.
Yeah.
Back actually in West Clare, with a rented shed back there, without any knowledge of the industry or the background. It wasn't like a light bulb moment. I was very interested in business, and I had tried many businesses. Not that any of them before Zeus failed. Yeah. It's just they were selling, Christmas stands, ice cream shops, tutorial centers, all of which were successful. Yeah. So there was this light bulb moment, and Zeus came along, and I just decided to start a packaging business. But I got an opportunity to sell one product, which was pallet wrap for wrapping pallets. And I took the business from there to where it is today, where we've got 35,000 products across 26 countries. And we've got 1,300 direct employees and another 2,000 in contract manufacturing firms around the world. And we are going to have a global turnover this year in the region of about 600 million euros.
Whoa.
So I'm not sure if that describes what Zeus is, but it gives the scale of what we have built and what we've built to today.
So take me back to 26 years ago. You obviously had an entrepreneurial mindset from a very early age, I'd imagine.
Yeah, but I didn't know what the word entrepreneur meant, right? So it wasn't that I knew what an entrepreneur was. I just had an innate interest in business, and I loved business. Yeah. Even though I had no family background whatsoever in business, I didn't know anybody in business. I grew up in a rural setting in a place called Bridgeway between Middleton and Fermoy, about equidistance between the two towns. Yeah. The business that was around there was a farming background. Yeah. All my neighbours were farmers. We didn't have a farm, but I worked on farms growing up, and I like in my house, hard work was a staple. My dad worked for Dairy Gold Co-op, John, and my mother, Julia, she minded, as I've said before, every child within a 20-mile radius of our home. That's what we did. But hard work was there. And I guess I was blessed with plenty of common sense and cop on. Not sure that I knew as I said, what an entrepreneur was, but certainly I wanted more than when I was growing up. And I wanted to be in some form of business, even to the degree of when I was being paid for some of the farmers I worked for, it was in the form of a calf, right? Which
instead of payment.
The payment was small. The payment was small, right?
Yeah.
So, and then I'd rear that and sell them and to make some money. So I suppose the entrepreneur spirit was there, Stephen, even though I didn't know what that was or what the word even meant, except that I liked and loved business.
It's probably a word that's thrown around a lot more these days than it probably was back then. You know, like I'm thinking in the 90s, people didn't talk about entrepreneurial.
I don't know, because again, I didn't grow up in that type of a background, right? So when you don't grow up, you know, discussing business at the breakfast table or whatever, you know, the dinner table, when that's not even on the agenda, it's not even there. So I'm not sure if it was discussed. I'm sure in households where there was a family business there, it probably was discussed, or at least the word would have been known what it meant or what business was about. But certainly, you know, not in our home, because it just, it wasn't there, you know, I mean, it just wasn't there.
How did you go from East Cork to West Clare? How did that happen?
I was working during college, because I was lucky enough to get to college. I went to the Tech and Fermoy, that's now, it's closed down as the vocational school, the Tech, the year I finished, and it became Colostrum Cuivine. That's an excellent school now. Yeah. But the old tech system that was there, that's where I went to school. Very lucky in that educational experience that it was, that the metalwork teacher saw something in me, and we filled out the CAO form together, which again, another thing I didn't know what it was. Yeah. And we filled that out. I did a few honor subjects on my own, because that facility wasn't there either in the school really at the time, and got a place in Thomond College in Limerick. So this is, I suppose, this was the move from North Cork to Limerick. Yeah. Did my degree there in metalwork, became a metalwork teacher. When I finished, you know, teaching, I knew I didn't want to be a teacher, right? But even though I taught for a few years afterwards, but certainly, you know, the teaching or the college experience was a way to move forward, a progression, you know, because it was seen as, and still is, a great job. But like, it was seen for me, I could see it as a way, you know, to the next step in my career, whatever that may look like. I began doing a master's in UL because Thomond College formed or amalgamated with NIHE, and I did a master's in UL. And during that time, I had, as I said to you, I had all of these businesses running. I mean, running tutorial schools, satellite dish installation, selling mobile phones. I was bringing mobile phones in from the UK.
And that was the early days, mobile phones.
Late 80s, early 90s, right? And I was bringing massive things, right? They were the blocks that you put into the car. So you actually had to put them into the car. And then we were one of the first, or I was one of the first, to actually bringing these mobile phones in from the UK, getting them shipped. I don't know if it was even legal. I presume it wasn't illegal anyway. Yeah. And you changed to the 088 network, and we sold these. I sold them to business people. I sold them to my lecturers. And I suppose that's definitely the industry or the business, because it was really before there was no such thing as a Carrefour warehouse or any of this. What didn't exist. That I should have stuck with, and I could have stuck with it, but I didn't know what a business looked like. So when you don't know what a business looks like, you don't know that you should have stuck with it. You didn't know that you were maybe on this light bulb moment, and I had no one to ask because I didn't know any business people. I had no mentors or someone to turn to go, am I on the right track here? I mean, whereas now, going back to your question, I think, Stephen, about, you know, today and, you know, entrepreneurial spirit and what's available to kids coming through school today, they they can speak to people. I mean, I'm, even at national school level or primary school level, if that's the right words.
Yeah.
They're doing entrepreneur programs because I've been asked to, to help and to speak at some of those, which I've agreed to do.
Yeah.
So it's now from, primary school, national school level up that the word entrepreneurship is becoming something that's been spoken about, not just at home. So if you don't have it at home, like I discussed where I didn't have it at home, it certainly wasn't spoken about in my national school, even though I had a great national school, or in the Tech and Fermoy. That wasn't a word that ever came up. So
you could have actually had the original ESAT Digiphone or the original maybe Aircell, because I'm thinking in the late 90s, they were the two that emerged, Dennis O'Brien and stuff like that.
Yeah.
You were kind of nearly predating them.
Yeah. I know Dennis, so I don't want I don't want to steal his thunder and say I could have beaten him to it, but certainly what we were doing, was extraordinary at the time, or what I was doing, because I was on my own, was extraordinary at the time to be doing that. And look, it just happened. And as I said, it fizzled out because the network was poor. The mobile phones were rubbish. So and when you're on your own, I mean, and the complaint department is massive, right? Because, it wasn't that I was doing a bad job, except the technology wasn't there. And again, as I said, I didn't know that this was a business, or this looked like a business. So that's it, Stephen. You know what I mean? And you move on. So I probably didn't answer your question, but going back to the question that you did ask. So now I'm in Limerick, right? Yeah. And I meet a guy, and he's looking to do some part-time work. And he had a crop packaging business. So he was selling crop packaging to agricultural co-ops and merchants in Ireland. And it was a small business back in West Clare. And I started doing some sales for him, during, again, I was teaching, I had a few businesses, I was going on, and this was another way of making money. And when I started that business, as I said, it was relatively small, and together we built it up to a very substantial business in the terms of what you look at as what's a big business in that industry. Yeah. And I loved what I was doing. I loved that business, and I loved selling. So I asked him, for maybe a small percentage of the business. And he said no. He said, look, it's a family business. And sometimes to get a no can be the best word to hear. That no changed the direction of what I was going to do, because then I knew I was going to be in business. Yeah. And the company where we bought the agri stretch film from also made, back to where I started at the beginning, this thing called pallet wrap, right? One product. Okay. They were based in Apeldoorn in the Netherlands, a couple of hours south of Schiphol Airport. And they asked me, would I be interested in selling their pallet wrap in Ireland? Mm. And I said, of course I would. Why wouldn't I? And that was the start of Zeus.
Where did the name come from?
Even back then, right? And this is no disrespect to any businesses that call it their business, Munster Packaging or Cork Packaging or Sullivan Packaging or any of those. Yeah. Even back then, I just felt that I could build something that was, bigger. And I wanted it to have a name that was bigger than that, even though it's absolutely, a name is relevant or irrelevant. But what's absolutely relevant is the product, the customer service, being customer obsessed. That's what's important in any business. The name is relevant or irrelevant. But in my brain, it was that I would be able to have something that was bigger than, a local business. I wanted it to sound probably bigger than it was, which was basically myself, a one-man van show. So it's about marketing. It's about marketing. That's where the name came from. I had no background in Greek mythology. Certainly from my background didn't come from that. It was just a name. And at the time, I also felt that I would brand products, and I was going to brand products with Zeus on them and, build a brand. So we've built many brands since then, but the Zeus brand is more, I suppose, the company name, and the brands we've built around it, like Apollo and Olympia, they're related to it, but these are only, things you think of in the middle of the night, and they become your other brands that we've built along the way.
But I'd imagine it's the Greek gods, the strength. I'm guessing, is that somewhere along the way? Was this something
I don't know. Yes and no. I mean, I don't even know if I knew. And now, of course, I know what Zeus is, right? So, I mean, embarrassed even to say, of course, it's the god of the gods, right? Yeah. But like, it's not something I sat down and go, oh, I'm the god. No, there's no way I had that confidence even to believe or think that. I've confidence in, what I could do but I would never have openly said, that I could do this because, when you come from, again, I've given you a little bit of an insight into my background, that wouldn't have been there to have that level of confidence. I guess that even that I'm sitting here today would not have happened except for the EOY entrepreneur program that I went on, and I was, lucky enough or good enough to win that program. And I think during that, over the last couple of years, that has given me the confidence to say what I am and what I've done and what I've built. And because I remember them very clearly, the manager, the director of that program, Roger Wallace, said to me, look, Brian, if you're going to not tell what you are and what you've built and the business that you actually have, you're not going to win anything, because you have to be able to say what you are. Of course, if I was American at $1 million business, I'd probably say it was whatever. But when you're from my background, it was very difficult to actually, promote, or self-promotion wouldn't have been something.
It's an Irish thing, isn't it?
I guess it is. I mean, I guess it is because and I think it's a confidence thing as well. And I going back to the kids of today, where they're learning about entrepreneurship or learning about, business or whatever. I believe that, the confidence level that they're going to have is going to be fantastic. But again, I also have a view that maybe we are, in some cases, creating kids that are overconfident, that they believe that they can be anything that they want to be, right? Yeah. And I don't want to bust a bubble, but like not everybody can be the president of the US or the Taoiseach of Ireland or running one of the biggest businesses. Unfortunately, that's just not the way it is. It's great to give them the confidence, but I think also that has to be linked with the reality of what's required to get there. Resilience.
Because you will get setbacks. You just mentioned a few.
Resilience goes without saying. I mean, there are words I could use and tell you about resilience, passion, trust, integrity, honesty, being customer obsessed. All of those are vital to run any business of any size. But that's what's required. That's what's required, Stephen.
So would you be afraid that the younger generation today, and I'm sure there's a lot listening, and I even throw it into sport, okay? If you're trying to make your way through a game, like let's say as a young player, you're probably going to get kicked back more than you're actually going to make it at times. Like you're going to get rejected, you're going to be put on the bench. And the same thing happens in business. And maybe we're not teaching our kids to be kind of, tougher. Maybe, I don't know.
No, I agree with you. And, in my house at home, that would be the motto, and my kids would know the motto, never give out, never give in, never give up. And like they would, if you ask them, my children at home, what's the motto? That's what they would say to you because they know that. And it's very, very difficult, where I grew up and how I grew up I grew up hungry, Stephen. Yeah. I was hungry for success. I don't even know what that word success really means because everybody's view of success is different. But to go back to your question on, we do need to make sure that through our education system and more importantly, parents do manage the expectations of our children because they need to be managed, that they don't fall down. And when they fall down at the first hurdle, that they need to be able to get up again, because in life, sport, as you mentioned, business, without that resilient trait, of course, life can be difficult.
Have you had setbacks in business? Like, have you had stages where you thought, oh God, we're on the way out? There's been a couple of recessions and stuff in that period of time. In particular, I think of 2007, 2008, the big crash. Did that have an impact on you?
Yes, of course. I don't think there's any company in Ireland, and we were 10 years in business in 2000, and we started in 1998, started Zeus. So everything was going so well. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The country, I'm using the word the country because at that stage Zeus was an Irish, it's still an Irish business, but it was an Irish business we had expanded into the UK.
Okay.
And we were already, like, in 10 years, given the fact that I started with nothing, no financial backing, no knowledge of the business, and to be in 2008 in a region of 60 or 70 million euro revenue, I had already become, the biggest indigenous packaging business in Ireland, and was moving to the UK. And then 2008 came, and I acquired. So I started at the beginning. We grew by organic growth. Okay, so sold one product, like we mentioned already, the pallet wrap. Customers went, Brian, we like you. We like the product. You're doing a great job. How about, tape, boxes? So the business back then was a transit packaging business where we sold end-of-line packaging, consumable packaging to the businesses in Ireland, and there was, those kind of companies were like the Dells and, packaging companies who needed end-of-line packaging.
Yeah.
And we had expanded from transit packaging into food service. So we were supplying supermarkets and retail packaging to, we'll just stick with the Irish names like Musgraves, Dunn's, BWG, Cost Cutter, and we expanded into that. Bit by organic, but that was by acquisition. I bought a few small businesses in Ireland. And again, of course, that's another story. When you go from having a business that you've grown from zero, or in maybe a family business, but then you decide to go and acquire a business, the skill sets that you require when you're trying to merge a business that you've bought, in our cases, from, owner operators, basically. Yeah. And then you've got to adapt and develop and bring along their culture, because you need to make sure that their culture of the business that you're acquiring also feeds into what you have currently. And, errors and mistakes, to answer your question, I made then as well, because, you begin to believe, which is a mistake, which I learned very early, that, you walk on water. Of course, I'm doing this great job. I've built this business to this level. We're acquiring a business that's X amount smaller. And of course, we know better than you. Again, something that I would never have said out loud, but it can set in because, you've been, in inverted commas, back to that word, you've been successful.
Yeah.
It's something clearly I've learned, and we would never do something like that now, because we embrace the cultures and what's in businesses that we're acquiring. So yes, so the 2008 came and everybody spoke about the soft landing. I had built up this, in inverted commas, again, back to the word success, because, this is not, this is only audio here, so I'm doing the inverted commas.
Yeah.
And the crash came, and the crash was a huge crash. I was significantly borrowed, and we had a considerable amount of money borrowed, and it was a very, very difficult time. I would say that to some degree, because of the level of borrowings that we had, the business was massively in negative equity. But if it wasn't, maybe the banks at the time would have taken a different view, but they took the view. So I don't think they had a whole lot of choice. There was only one guy who could actually run this business and get this business out of where it was.
That was yourself.
And that was myself. And that's what we did. So those years of 2009, 10, 11, and into 12 were extremely tough years, where the resilience that was required, the determination that was required, it's unexplainable what you need to do. And there's no off period. Like there's no, I mean, there's no like work-life balance. There's work, and that's the balance. That's the only way you can get through something like that. And we got through it, and without any financial write-off or anything like that. And we have, went on from then. Again, I suppose you go into the pandemic, COVID-19, which was a massive challenge. We had customers all over weeks before, as they saw this thing coming, this COVID-19 coming, going, are you sure you're going to be able to supply? Are you going to have product? Can you keep making product? Are your factories working? And we were saying, yes, we have this covered. We know what we're doing. And you go from that, and all of these questions coming at you from clients who are concerned about their businesses, and we're concerned about their businesses because that's our job, to be concerned about their businesses. Yeah. And Monday morning comes, they're shut down, and it goes from, are you able to maintain factories? Are you able to maintain supply, to going, we don't want anything because we're closed. So that was a very difficult period.
Was it tougher than the previous one?
No. You learn.
Okay.
You learn. So it wasn't tougher than the previous one. So along the road, the potholes or the roadblocks, you learn by experience, and experience you can't buy. So what I had learned the first time around, stood to me unbelievably well in the crisis that was COVID-19 for business. I knew what to do, but you had a great idea. Okay, we need to battle down the hatches. We've got a good business here. This will turn. We've got a very diverse product portfolio. Not everything can close. It's bound to stay open. Some countries are going to be good. Some countries are not going to be so good. And look, after 4, 5, 6 weeks into that crisis, we could see the light, and that what we did was required. Packaging was required. It probably shifted from where it was, but the requirement was there. And so no, I mean, it was a lot. It was very difficult, and I shouldn't just speak about business because we're here talking about business, and so many people, got very ill and died during this period. So, and I'm here discussing business, which makes it sound, very. And
you probably had to worry about your own team as well.
And that was paramount. And how could we make sure that they were going to be okay? And it was different than with the crash, right? It was completely different. But to answer your question, we and the team had around me at that stage, we were in a better position to be able to make decisions to handle it.
And the word team, I'd say that's important to you. I'd imagine when you said it was 1,300 employees, you can't obviously deal with every single one of them. So you must rely on extremely good management teams and stuff like that to help you along the way.
Yes. In business, it's very important to, as an owner, as a senior manager, you need to be able to understand the ceilings, the upper level that an employee or a staff member has, because once you get there, that's the most that somebody can give you. Yeah. I mean, I often hear, I'm going to get 110. No, you're not going to get 110% out of somebody. The maximum you can get is 100%. Right? That's it. That's full stop. It's 100%. Yeah. You can't get any more than that. And if you get anywhere close to that, that's excellent, and you're doing a great job. For me, I recognized my level when along the way. So when I started on my own, I knew what I could do. Yeah. I could sell some product. Yeah. I can't do accounts or HR or any of this other stuff. I would be rubbish at all of that, Stephen, right? That's not my job. So I recognized back then, that's not what I'm going to do. If I'm going to grow a business, I need to people with me who can do those jobs. They were only very small at the very beginning. But as you grow, you bring people in around you who can develop your business. And you know the old adage that, you know, hire people that are better than you. I hired loads of people that are better than me.
Yeah.
Anybody would be better than me in all of those other things, except probably selling and maybe a bit of strategy, right?
Yeah.
They'd all be better than me.
Yeah.
And then there's a size or a scale you get to when I knew I needed to bring in a senior management team. And I went out and I hired, you know, our CEO, and it's not our new CEO because before that I suppose I was the CEO. I mean, and he came on board. He's developed an executive team around him, mostly from internally, some from externally, and that was again, I think, me recognizing the fact that I knew I had taken the business to this level, right? You know, whatever the number may be, and people need to recognize that, and then to see, okay, what do we need around us? Because I don't believe I'm a great team player. I'm not. I mean, I know that's a question you asked me, but I've made wouldn't be a great accountant, right? I wouldn't have a clue how to do accounts. Yeah. I'm not a great team player, but so what I've made sure is that I've put a management structure in place with exceptional people who are exceptionally good at bringing and encouraging and empowering the team.
Is it hard when you do that at the beginning, you know, to relinquish control? Because obviously you had built this company from scratch and then you're kind of handing it over on a day-to-day basis to someone else. Is that difficult?
For me, no. No? I mean, everybody, I would say around me thought it would be extremely difficult, that I wouldn't be able to do it and it wouldn't happen. But Stephen, I'm driven to succeed. And back to that succeed word again. Yeah. I knew that if I didn't do that I knew the business could not grow because I would stifle the growth of the business. Yeah. So no, it wasn't difficult for me. What's difficult for me is you often make, not often, but you can make those decisions and sometimes you go, you know, a step forward and sometimes you might have to go 2 steps back to go again. But essentially, no, it wasn't. It was a thought process. It's a strategy. There's no way you can grow to the numbers we've grown to and you can do it yourself because then it's just not possible. So I would have seen how that wasn't the right thing to do. And the right thing was to make sure I had a team that could deliver the growth that I strove for within this business called Zeus.
But I'm guessing, just judging by you, you're still very hungry. Like, you know, it never stops.
I grew up hungry. I've developed hungry.
Yeah.
And now I'm hungrier than ever. It hasn't stopped. I heard somebody saying, oh, like, you know, you get road bumps or there's bumps along the road and, you know, and these are great ways to teach you and you learn from that. And the answer is yes. But I mean, for me, winning hasn't dampened any of the hunger. Every day I get up hungry and I want to win more.
You just want to get the business bigger and bigger.
Yeah. And it's not like back in the day when you start, when I was teaching, you've got responsibilities. And you've got a car loan to pay and you've got this. So, when you're jumping off and jumping out of, in inverted commas, the job, you know?
Yeah.
But that never bothered me. That wasn't even a consideration. I was going to be in business. I was going to have a business. That wasn't even a consideration. But certainly, now I can't explain to you why or what that is, because that's the ingredient that people like me, I think, have, is that, of course we set intermediate goals. You have to set intermediate goals, and you have to, because that's what defines business, right?
Yeah.
So you set the goal for this week, this day, this month, this year, right? And that's what defines you along the path. And that's not just in business. That can be back to sport or back to life. I mean, whatever your life goal may be. And you're happy to be talking to a guy here who focuses on one part of life, which is business, right?
Yeah.
I can't help that because that's how I'm built. But I mean, whatever it may be, and you set goals along the way. But they're only the steps that we have to put there to go on and go forward to the next goal.
And
yeah. And I think, and again, at some stage, which I don't know where it is because I haven't set that line.
Yeah.
There has to be at some stage, a line where my ceiling will be reached. And the most important in any owner, senior manager, or whatever, is to have the courage, to put up their hand and say, do you know what? I mean, I've done this. I've taken it. I've built it. I'm not sure what more I can bring to this organization. And that's a really, really courageous place to be. I'm not sure. I know this is obviously related to somewhat sport, and not that I know clearly very little about it, but Jurgen Klopp, he's the manager of Liverpool, and I was away somewhere and I heard this that he had, and I was going, God, he's very successful. And I by the way, I have no idea of the reason why, but there's a part of me who, if it is the right reason, and I don't know what it is, that you go, okay, well, I've done what I'm doing. Okay, so you when you're winning and when you're a winner, I mean, your drug is the next win, and you're focused on the next win. So you win, in his case, I presume the Premiership. I don't even know if they've won it or not. But if you win the Premiership, and then of course that's gone, you have to win the next Premiership. In my case, it's I do a deal. And whether that deal is we acquire a business or we get a big contract or our sustainability goals have been met, whatever that may be. But then you move on. And so there's always the next one.
Yes. So sport is kind of different in that way, all right? In terms of, as you said, that there's a lot of rinse, repeat, maybe much more so than in business where you can global expansion, things like that. But bringing us to sport, what got you involved with Cork City?
I don't know.
You don't know?
Okay, what got me involved with Cork City? Yeah, I do know. My son plays for my soccer, right?
Okay. Yeah.
And I'd never been to Turner's Cross.
Yeah.
And my older son is a mad Man United fan. And I don't know, which is great at the moment. I have a fleeting interest to try and talk to him about something rather than what my focus, which is business. But during half time, Cork City sometimes have, local soccer clubs come on at half time and they play some bit of a game, right?
Yeah. Small goals, yeah.
Small goals.
Yeah.
So he was going to that of a Saturday or a Sunday, and I went along, saw this thing called Turner's Cross in Cork City. Somebody approached me and said, would I be interested in, some farmer sponsorship? I said, not a chance, no interest, nothing about this, haven't an idea. Yeah. So anyway, that obviously didn't really work out for me, seeing that I'm sitting here with you here today, Stephen. So what happened was, I met the guys involved in Cork City at the hotel at the airport. I was flying in from somewhere. I met them and they presented Cork City to me. And I was blown away with the passion and the desire that they had for their club. Yeah. And I went, this is, so this was something for me like outside of business, because I can understand it in business. And I said, okay, I like this. But that was a Friday evening. So they asked me, would I think about it? I said, of course I would. Over the weekend, I thought about it. I was going through my head is, of course, it always then comes back to business. What will Zeus get from this?
Yeah, what's the return on investment?
Why? And then there's the other pieces, which I would always be careful about, is is this ego? Do you know what I mean? Why am I doing this? Is this an egotistical thing to have, you know, the company name in front of a shirt? Of course, we know it's not. I mean, so many businesses do it all over the world, and they do it to promote their brand or whatever they're doing. So I was again back on a plane on Monday morning, and an unusual thing happened. I'd met a gentleman about 5 or 6 months previously, and in a business setting, obviously, and he was talking about his business, and then he went on to say about you know, how much he was worth, and you know what value he had, and his net assets. And I was going, oh yeah, but that doesn't float my boat, okay? And I got a text to say, unfortunately, I know this might sound really morbid, but you know, the gentleman had died. He was an elderly gentleman, had died, and I was going, so what do I want? You know, what's my legacy? Do I want that? Of course, you know, there's parts of it that may want it, but I said, you know, I loved what those guys were saying down in Cork City. I love their attitude, and I'm going to make the decision, and I'm going to invest in this club and by sponsoring it. And that was really it. It was probably a sequence of events that happened all in the space of a week, you know, that happened. And I made the decision I rang the Din marketing manager. I gave him a call. I said, I'll be back in on Wednesday. I'll meet you. And he said, is it good news? I said, yeah, as far as I'm concerned, you know, it's good news. I'd like to be involved with the club. And it has been a great decision for me and for us. From a personal or family perspective, my kids love going to the games. Unfortunately, I'm not around as much as I'd like to be because I travel so much. But we've loved. We're 1 year in, and we've loved everything being involved with Cork City and the club and what Dermot and the whole team are doing there.
And what do the kids make of the Zeus packaging on the jerseys? Have they kits themselves?
Yeah, they've kits themselves. So we obviously sponsor Fermoy as well, right? So probably the local Fermoy one is every bit as important, you know, because that's what they play with. But no, it's great, and they love to see it, and it's good to see it. So yeah, we're delighted with that. Yeah.
And you do a lot of traveling. Have you ever come across somebody with the jersey randomly somewhere, and you're kind of, that's our brand on that jersey?
Of course, yeah. And you see it, and you know, again, it's great to see that, Stephen. But I'm going to go back to it. I didn't get involved with Cork City really for that reason. Okay, I didn't. I did it for the reasons of what we could give back locally. I'm from Cork, right? Yeah. So there's obviously when you're from Cork, there's something about That's it. We know the story, right? That's
Cork first.
Cork first. and again, from a commercial perspective, we have opened in Watergrass Hill, even though we always had, you know, an operation locally in Cork, but we opened a new operation in Watergrass Hill down the road, 6 months ago, which is can store 14,000 pallets. So I think it was getting a statement for us that, you know, Zeus and Brian O'Sullivan was investing back in Cork. Yeah. So there was, you know, lots of reasons.
Getting back to your roots, I suppose. Yeah, it's kind of like full circle.
Yeah, lots of reasons. But all so far so good. I'm, you know, delighted with the interactions and what it has brought. And again, you know, you've got me here today, so I'm delighted for that as well.
Yeah, and it's fascinating. And I think for anyone listening to this, and I know this is obviously predominantly a sports podcast, but I think there's a lot of people that listen to sport or into sport that are fascinated by business and might be trying to create their own business. And it's great to have somebody that they can look up to.
Well,
you know, and I think it has to be acknowledged that, you know, somebody from just outside of Middleton has created a business that's worth 600 million. Like, and now is starting to give back to its own city. Like, I mean, you know, it's a great story. And, you know, I don't know what the future, I'd imagine you're not giving up anytime soon.
No. Thanks for that, Stephen. No, we're not giving up anytime soon. There's, as I said earlier on, there are no plans to stop. We will keep going, which is really important to me. We've got set ourselves, our new goals are around sustainability. what we can do for locally, from with a sustainability focus, and globally, because we are a global business. If even that word, I even struggle to get that word out. That will tell you, right? But we are, so we have to be very focused on that as well. And it's the same with Cork City. It needs to be sustainable, right? So it needs a future, and it needs to do what it's doing. So it's great to be able to be in a position to be able to give back, in any scale whatsoever. So we're delighted for that. And it's new for us because, philanthropy is a word that's, very big in the US, because I suppose the industries there are generational and multi-generational. And for us in Ireland, I mean, we need to be going down that focus and have that focus and on that road as well.
Yeah, and I suppose it's great for your kids to be able to see it as well, and see that business can interact with the sports side of it as well, and that one can help the other, I'd imagine. Yeah,
it's vitally important that happens. Whether it's in sport or any other charities or whatever we do. It's great to be able to link that up and give back. It can't all be about take, and when you get to know some. And a lot of business people like myself as well, we're doing a lot more that people don't see, but that's good. I mean, we do, in what we're doing, maybe locally, globally, what people don't see. I mean, yes, this Cork City piece is obviously very evident because it's in the front of the shirt, right, with Zeus. But there's a lot that people give as well and do, which is great because it needs, that's what, charities, clubs, they need that support. Otherwise, they would find it very hard to develop and grow. And, from a business perspective, if I can, help, like, as I said to you earlier on, even in this discussion about even going to a primary school to talk, for 30 minutes to talk to the 5th and 6th class about this word that we mentioned, entrepreneurship, and in other words, success. Isn't that giving back as well? And that, that can really help maybe somebody, as you said there, Stephen, with this idea that they have, and, can they do it, and can they take whatever idea it may be to the next level, whatever that level may be. We've mentioned the numbers that Zeus has grown to, but if you want a business and the business is you, one person, and that's the business, that's great. If that's what you want it to be, that's success. If you want to be, the leader of a business, that's success. So I want to make sure that and we've mentioned it already, that the definition of success is different for every single person, every club, everybody, because that's really important, because it needs to be said that there's not, again, back to, there's not too much pressure on people for, in inverted commas, what's perceived as success.
Let's hope for success this season. Will you get down to the Cross this year?
I will. I won't get there the first game because I'm heading for Australia tomorrow, Saturday morning on business. And so I won't make it, but definitely can't wait to get there. I'm sure there's going to be a huge amount of success. I believe the hunger is there for that, and to get back up to the Premiership.
I think we'll have to get you into the dressing room and give a bit of a motivational talk about that hunger, and who knows. So thanks a million, Brian, for coming in and being our first guest on the Rebel Army podcast.
Thanks very much, Stephen. It was a pleasure. Really enjoyed it.
Thanks a million. And what did you make of Brian's interview?
Another really interesting chat, actually, for a man who kind of fell into the world of football, and he's, he'll tell you himself, he isn't a football fan.
No,
really
he's
interesting to hear from him,
yeah.
And how he got started, and how he basically built Zeus from the small business that it was of him selling pallet wrap to the massive worldwide company it is now. It's incredible. Yeah.
You talk about success, and I mean, people talk about a winning mentality. The guy has built a business that in 25 years that's turning over 600 million a year.
Yeah.
That's phenomenal. Yeah. And any scale of the imagination, in terms of, you just think of like imagine starting something from a small shed in West Clare and growing it to a business that in 39 countries. I just thought we can all learn from that. Doesn't matter what you're doing in life, you can learn from that.
He loves as well, which is really important. He loves what he's doing. He loves work. He loves his work. And he just, you know, the way he was saying he's never satisfied with where he is. No. He always wants to do more and build more. So
he's
really
so hungry. Yeah, it's brilliant. It's absolutely brilliant. And and I think he's interested in kind of helping the club get that mentality as well and kind of go forward. And like, I think he's going to be a great soundbite to anyone that wants to talk to him.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? And he will be at the Cross a few times over the year or whatever. He obviously a busy man. He was off to Australia, whatever there.
Yeah.
You know, like, but when he's around, he'll be at the Cross.
Even the fact he's off to Australia, like he's going there for work, it shows the scale of the company. How it's gone from West Clare and from Oi to he's now going off to Australia and New Zealand to get some work done over the next 2 weeks.
Yeah, unbelievable. Yeah. But between him now and Tim, you know, I think people get great insight to what's going on in the club at the moment. And it's exciting, you know, it's exciting. Yeah, obviously we've gone a step back. We've gone into the first division, but sometimes you have to go back to go forward as well.
Exactly, yeah. And that sort of insight from Tim and from Brian, that's the logic behind this podcast. You know, we want to give an insight and to, you know, you hear from the manager, supporters, volunteers, sponsors, players, everyone. That's what this is. And like we've been speaking before this is going to be an evolving thing. You know, this is, we're open to feedback, what people want to hear, what they don't want to hear, what's not working. Like this is going to be a work in progress that we mold it as we go. So like, by all means, send your feedback, send your tweets, Instagram messages, whatever it is.
Who would you like to see on it? Send us in. You know, there might be someone that you think no one has ever spoke to them. You know what I mean? We're going to be looking at, you know, the women's team. We're going to be looking at the underage, the amputee team. We're going to be looking at different people that are involved in the club. You know, we've had some phenomenal stories come out of this club over the years, and I think maybe not everyone knows about them.
Yeah, and that's the purpose of this podcast.
Yeah.
So by all means, send us your tweets and your DMs and all that, and we'll read everything, and we'll see what we can do.
And we're hoping to bring it out every week. Probably Tuesdays.
I think Tuesday is the day we're looking at. Yeah.
Just give us time.
We're recording here on Monday, the week of the Kerry game. We're actually out in the Crown Centre. Yeah. So we'd like to send a massive thanks to everyone at the Crown Centre. They're the club's official charity partner, and they've got a great podcast studio out here.
Brilliant.
They've made available for us, and to be able to use this, it's brilliant. They've also got a co-working space downstairs, the Impact Hub. So if you're looking for a space like that or a podcast space, get in contact with the Crown Centre.
Yeah, if you want to get involved with a charity, do a bit of a fundraiser for them or something like that.
Yeah.
I'm sure Paul and his team there would have a chat with you. You know, like great. And they gave us a tour last week, and I was very impressed.
It's an incredible facility here. Like it's when we first came out here last year, and they showed us around. And we were out here a couple of times afterwards for the walk and roll event and stuff like that, and doing promo bits for that. It's an incredible facility, and the work they do here is amazing as well. And they're a great partner to have for the club.
Yeah, no, it's brilliant. So I suppose before we wrap it up, if you need to buy tickets, can you buy them in the shop?
You can buy them in the shop. You can buy them on the club website, and we'll obviously have the ticket huts outside on Friday night as well. But Friday night, 7:45 kickoff at Turner's Cross. If you're supporting from afar, we're back on LOI TV.
How did it get that then?
That's on, it's through the League of Ireland, the LOI TV website. You can buy a season pass. It's actually incredible value, to be fair. I think it's €120.
And can you buy that from anywhere in the world?
Buy it from anywhere, There's no restrictions, and your €120 doesn't just cover your team or your league. That's your season pass that covers the men's Premier Division, men's First Division, and the women's Premier Division.
And can you watch any match?
Any match. There's 430 something matches for €120, which works out at less than €1 a game, a couple of cents a game, which is incredible value when you actually consider what you're getting for it. So join us at Turner's Cross, or if you can't join us at Turner's Cross, we're on LOI TV and
catch up on the socials.
Obviously, our socials, we'll have our match updates on Twitter, or X as it's called now, and the FAI Connect app as well, which was a new addition last year. Basically like the League of Ireland's version of Live Score, which is very handy for supporters.
Very good.
But find us on all the usual channels for all of our match updates on Friday evening.
Looking forward to it. So that's it for this first episode. Thanks to everyone for listening, and we look forward to hopefully a good result on Friday. But no matter what happens, we'll be here next week.
See you next week.